Thousands of students lived in Smith Hall in its 63-year life from 1947, just after World War II, to 2010, when it was demolished to make way for this magnificent new research center behind us. The spirit of Smith Hall will live on with the work of this new building. Back in 1947, when Kenneth Fox was the president of Lowell Technological Institute, when student veterans flooded the campus thanks to the GI Bill, when a brave new world was dawning after years of war and darkness in the early and mid-1940s, Smith Hall was built. That year, a time capsule was placed behind the cornerstone of the building. Today, we're going to open that time capsule and see what the students, faculty, administrators of 1947 have to say to us today. Helping us with this task is Jack Peznola, who graduated from the University of Lowell in 1987 with a degree in civil engineering. He served as an architect in the United States Navy for many years, is now in the engineering division manager for Hancock Associates. Please join me in welcoming Joe Peznola as he makes a few remarks on behalf of the Smith alums. Thank you.
I'm going to talk about my life in a men's dormitory, so I guess this is the comic relief for the afternoon. But when I heard that Smith Hall was coming down, I got a lump in my throat. I was sad to know a place that I called home for 4 years would be no more. And its place rising above us is progress. But sometimes progress comes with a little loss of some of our past. So I think it's fitting that we commemorate that past. I wasn't originally going to come to Lowell. I was late in applying. I was accepted without housing. I came to school with a single bag and crashed on my brother's couch in Smith Hall, room 203. Daily, I'd go over to Dean Duggan's office and ask her for a room as soon as she could get me one. And she did that. And I moved into room 402 in Smith Hall a few weeks into school. I quickly made new friends, friends that I have to this day. My roommate, though, in 402 was an electrical engineer. I'm a civil engineer, and if you know anything about engineering, they're different breeds of human beings. He studied all night. I mean, he studied all night and slept all day, and we just weren't compatible. So I once again tried to get another room. But just so happened I was playing football with some buddies on the front lawn of Smith Hall, and I tackled my brother's roommate and severely broke his leg. He was a big guy, and he had to drop out of school. So I went over to Dean Duggan, and I was in room 203, back with my brother. Anyway, sorry about that, John. I stayed in 203 for 2.5 years, and it was a great time. My roommate and I were president and vice president of dorm council. We had social functions and really got the guys in the dorm together, and we managed to balance the schoolwork and the social life, and as balancing goes, sometimes we fell down. Dean King, everyone knows Dean King, seemed to know everything that we did all the time before we even knew what we were doing, and I'll tell a story that points that home. One night, my roommate and I were heading back from the bathroom, heading into bed, and at the end of the hall, the stairwell doors came flying open, and down the hall floated this beautiful, long-haired woman, not a stitch of clothing. She walked up to us and said, "I'm looking for Tom the Greek." So I quickly took my robe off, put it on her shoulders, and took her to the only Tom we knew. And it was the right guy, and he took her and took care of her. But the next... That's another story that I can't tell now. But the next morning, before we could even regale our tale of Lady Godiva, we were summoned, my roommate and I were summoned to Dean King's office. So we had to recant the story, and Dean King stopped me when I got to the robe part, and he said, "Joe, if you took your robe off, what were you wearing?" And I said, "Dean, I was in my underwear, but that was a hell of a lot better than what she was wearing at the time." He couldn't argue with that logic and let us go to class. So, my final year at Smith, I was down in 125 as a resident advisor, and that was just a great experience. I got to know all the guys in the dorm. I got to help them and keep them in line. But that was a great experience. With all this history, a lot of memories tied to the building here, tanning on the roof of the walk-in freezer in the back that we affectionately called Smith Hall Beach, football, frisbee, steak and brew at the end of the year on the front lawn, making made-to-order omelets in the cafeteria. I also worked 4 years in the cafeteria. And Sunday mornings we'd make omelets, and every Sunday morning I'd be on the griddle and I'd hear the call come from the front line, ham and cheese with no runny stuff, and I'd say, "Hi, Deb," and that was my girlfriend, now wife, coming through for her breakfast. But everything about dorm life, with the interconnected tunnels and getting to go to class in the dead of winter in shorts and a t-shirt, confusing the heck out of the commuters and really making the guys over in Bourgeois and Leach jealous because they had to walk across that cold bridge. All of that was just a great experience. I mean, Smith Hall framed my experience at Lowell. It was my home. It was where my friends were, where I could study or not study, where I mentored and where I was mentored. My son's a freshman away at school this year in Milwaukee, and last summer when we were looking at dorms, he did some research, and he found reviews written by guys that were in this particular dorm, and they talked about camaraderie. And he chose that particular men's dorm because of that. And after a semester and a half, he now understands what that meant. I knew what it meant when I read the review. We will miss you, Smith Hall, but we have memories. We have friends for life, and I've got a brick. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joe. It's amazing what alums can say that chancellors can't.